Welcome back to Playing the Game podcast. Today's episode 14. I have on Holly Saville. She is the Performance Dietitian, and she is going to give you all the tips, tricks, hacks, just straight facts around diet, nutrition, health, and she gives a little bit of tactical advice for high rocks and runners, which is fantastic. As you know, here at Playing the Game podcast, we are on a mission to help 10,000 people live a better quality life. And to help us achieve that goal, I want you to send this episode to one person who you think will find it valuable. If you can do that, you're helping the mission, and I appreciate you. Apart from that, strap in, listen up, and here we go. If you could speak any language, what would you choose and why?
Okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is probably Italian.
Okay.
My pop was Italian, and my mum has obviously got Italian in it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I have no idea how to say, like, anything? In Italian. Yeah, okay. So I feel like that'd be handy. And I did go to Italy the other year and, yeah, struggled a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I'm going to start off very selfishly. I have high rocks in 8 days. So, obviously, the main part is done, but for this week coming into it, and you guys did on high rocks as well, but the week coming into it, and like, so the night and morning of, what are some of the best practices that I could do around my food?
Good question. So I also have had a lot of clients doing high rocks. I've been talking about this all week, but the main thing, like during the week, there's no need to adapt your nutrition. Just, as long as you're eating, nice balanced meals, enough carbohydrates just on your day-to-day. The day before, you don't necessarily need to do like a full carbohydrate load because you only need to do a carb load if your event is lasting 90 minutes or more, so which isn't usually high rocks. So that isn't necessary, but I definitely would recommend increasing your carbohydrates at your nighttime meal, so at your dinner. You want to aim for around like 1 gram of carbs per kilo in that meal. And then I'd also add, a nice carb-rich dessert as well. So whether that's, some ice cream or some sorbet or, whatever tickles your fancy. Yep. And then another big thing the day before is just making sure you are well hydrated throughout the day because obviously high rocks event, very sweaty event. So you want to be coming into the event hydrated. So typically the day before you want to aim for around 50 mils of fluid per kilo. So you guys can work that out depending on how much you weigh. That's the day before. The day of, it will depend what time your race is in terms of how you plan out your nutrition. So let's go for you. Like, when's your...
I'm between 8:30 and 10 o'clock is the heat time.
Okay, cool. So a couple of key guidelines, because I guess like the main priority and the main aim going into your race is you want to feel really energized and light. You don't want to feel like heavy or sluggish, but you want to have enough energy. So typically around 3 to 4 hours before your race, that is when you want to have your last main meal, a bit more of a balanced meal. In this meal, though, a couple of key things. One, you want to make sure you're having enough carbohydrates in that meal because carbs are your best friend going into that race. So, again, aiming for around that 1 gram of carbs per kilo. You want to have a little bit of protein in that meal as well. Just for, to keep you feeling full. And then with that meal, you want to make it relatively low in fat and fiber, just because those two things are pretty slow to digest and can sometimes cause a few gut issues. So some examples to put that into a bit more practical terms, you could do things like, cereal or oats. You could do eggs on toast with a glass of juice. You could do like a protein fruit smoothie, something like that. Lots of different options. And I guess the key thing on race day is don't try anything new. Like, try to stick to familiar foods, because if you try something new and it just doesn't sit right because everyone's very different, then, you might risk gut discomfort during So that's your main meal. And then 30 to 60 minutes before you actually start your race, that's when you want, again, some nice carbohydrates. But these type of carbs, you want to be nice and simple, easy to digest carbs, because you just want that quick little, burst of energy before you're about to race. So the amount of carbs you want in that snack is 0.5 to 1 gram of carbs per kilo. So, for example, 80 kilo person might want 40 to 80 grams of carbs in that snack. Some examples can be things like crumpets and honey, raisin toast. You could do like a honey sandwich, banana, things like that.
Perfect.
Again, familiar foods. Stick to what you've tried in training.
Had a triathlete Ironman runner on the other week, and he was very, I don't know the exact word, cautious in saying, make sure, the same thing you just said, make sure that you don't try something new on race day. He said his brother did one day and it wasn't a good outcome. Also, thank you for the examples. Like, really trying to make it really actionable that we take it away. So thank you for that. What about for someone who isn't competing necessarily this weekend and they're just doing high rocks training sessions in general? Would you say different to what you just gave then, if it's just a general training session, they're building up their prep?
So still every single training session you want to have some sort of simple carbohydrates before, because the thing is, if performance is your goal, then you want to make sure you're having some sort of carbs beforehand, because if you're not having carbs before, then you're a lot more likely to fatigue earlier and you're not going to get the most out of your session. So having some simple carbs, and you want to try and practice what you're going to have on race day. So if you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I might try some like crumpets because on race day, that's what I'm thinking I might try. Day to day, you do just want to make sure you're, eating enough for all the training that you're doing. So everyone's energy requirements will differ, but you just want to make sure you're well fueled every day and fueling before training sessions.
What about post sessions? What sort of, I hear a lot of different messages, and make sure the protein's within half an hour of the gym session, or the carbs are within a certain time frame. What is the best practice that you go by? Yeah,
so it's a little bit of a myth that, you need to guzzle down a protein shake within like half an hour. That's actually not quite true, because we know that the anabolic window, which is that key time for muscle recovery, is actually like up to like 5 hours. So you don't need to guzzle down, protein shake or get something straight away. But we do know that as soon as you have nutrition, that is when the recovery process will start. So I usually say to people, within like 60 to 90 minutes is a good time to try and get, some nutrition in. And in that meal or snack, there's a few key priorities. So number one, carbohydrates. I'm going to sound like a broken record on this, but
if it works,
hopefully people get the message.
Yep.
So you want to have some carbohydrates in that to help replenish those energy stores or your glycogen stores. You want to have some protein in there, so to help, start that muscle recovery process. And then you want to make sure you're just having some fluid to replace that fluid loss from your sweat. The type of food that you have will depend on the time of day. So if you're training in the morning, obviously you just come home and have a nice nourishing breakfast. If you're training mid-morning, you might come home and have more of a snack option, which could be things like up and go and fruit, or it could be yogurt and fruit, granola, those type of things.
For myself, I've found lately that I'll train in the morning, and then I found that fasting seems to really help me focus, and without eating when I don't get those carbs in. Is this a bad habit to have if I'm trying to focus on recovery and performance? I'll go to the gym, get a session, I'll have a protein shake because I do want to get something in, but I found if I have to do computer work or I have some sort of work and I don't eat anything, it sort of just helps me focus a little bit more before I start eating. Then when I start eating, I can't stop. But is that a bad practice to have?
Be my face. Look, if performance is your goal and you're really wanting to maximize recovery, especially if you've got training sessions you're wanting to back up like the following days, I wouldn't recommend fasting. none of my clients fast because most of them do train in the morning especially. I would be looking at the types of foods that you're having for breakfast.
Okay.
So there's a few key things to make sure you are having more sustained energy and you're not getting that like drop in blood sugars. So in that meal, that post-training meal, you want to make sure you're prioritizing more complex carbohydrates. So your low GI carbs, so your things like your high fiber cereals, your rolled oats, your banana, your whole grain bread, things like that. Just because the glucose absorbs a lot slower, so you'll get more of a sustained energy through the day. As well as your complex carbs, you want to have like your protein, like whether it's your protein shake or other things, and then also having some fiber from some like fruit or something, and then also some healthy fats in that. So that's what those 4 foods, your carbs, your protein, your colour and your healthy fats, that's what creates a really nice, satisfying and fueling meal. I would try that if
back to the drawing board. I just gave you on them, but what are the sort of the most common misconceptions that you get on a regular basis, or things that people are getting wrong? Like they come to you like that one just then, you're looking at them like, why are you doing that? Like,
fasting is a big one, and I guess like I see a lot of people wanting to achieve weight loss and body composition goals, and a lot of people don't eat very small in the first half of the day because they're trying to, be in that calorie deficit. So they have a really small breakfast, really light lunch, and then that's when like the cravings hit in the afternoon. And then often what I see is people overeat or, overindulge on, less nutritious foods like your high sugar foods and things like that in the afternoon because they haven't eaten properly in the first half of the day. So I find a lot of my clients where, to lose weight, it feels like we're eating more, but we're just eating more nutritious whole foods and we're actually still in that calorie deficit, but we're not starving.
Cool. So a bit about performance. Let's go back to the basics. What are some 2-3 basic tips that you could give someone who's looking to improve their diet?
Depending on what their goal is.
Okay. Their goal is weight loss. You talk about weight loss just then, or calorie deficit. Let's work around that.
Yeah, so a few key nutrition goals would be like 1, eating, like I just said, eating regular balanced meals throughout the day to, never getting to that point of like starvation, because that's when it's like harder to control your food choices. That would be a big one. And also sleep is a really big one. I know that's not necessarily nutrition, but I always tell clients like we can do all the nutrition things, we can do the recovery, in training and stuff, but if your sleep is compromised, then it's going to be so much harder to achieve your goals. Like sleep is king. 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. Try and get quality sleep if you can. Those would be things. And another thing, also not nutrition related, but stress management is a really big one. Because the stress affects our whole body. So, I would try and have some strategies.
Do you have any strategies that help reduce stress at all?
So everyone's quite individual, but just anything that you can do to just like slow down and be in the present, I think is always really helpful. So whether that's, a little bit of meditation, 5-10 minutes of meditation in the morning, or a little bit of journaling just to like thought dump. Might be at night time, you switch off a little bit earlier and you do some stretching, some foam rolling, like whatever that looks like.
Cool. Let's flip it around. What about muscle growth? Me personally, I'm trying to put on a little bit of muscle, not too much, but it's hard in those high rocks strength sessions. Got to have a little bit going there. What are some 2-3 basic tips that could be relevant for myself or people who are looking on muscle? Yeah,
for sure. So number 1 is actually being in a calorie surplus. So you want to be eating a little bit more than your body actually requires in terms of energy intake because, to build muscle, you need more energy. So that's quite a big one. Secondly, keeping your protein intake quite high. So you want to be aiming for around 2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo. So let's say you're 80 kilos, you want 160 grams of protein at least a day. And then ideally kind of like spreading it out through the day makes it a lot easier to get it in. And then third, I would be definitely supplementing with creatine monohydrate. A lot of evidence behind that supplement that can help with muscle mass and strength and energy production and all of that.
Cool.
So
let's keep going on the creatine supplements. What other supplements do you recommend? Will it depend on specific goals again? In general, do you have any supplements that you recommend?
Yeah, so for the everyday athlete, and I guess just to preface, like supplements are the cherry on top. Like we can't supplement, a good nutritious diet. Like nutrition, you have to get that foundation first. But the key supplements I commonly recommend my clients, number one, creatine, like we said. And in terms of like the protocol with creatine is 3 to 5 grams every single day. The key thing with creatine is taking it consistently. So you want to not skip it even like on a rest day, because the way it works is it does build up in your muscles over time. So yeah, you don't need to cycle it or anything like that.
I want to touch on that. I'm a high school teacher, I've spoken about it before, but I have a lot of students who are starting to take creatine. Is there an age where they should start taking or they shouldn't be having it?
Yeah, I don't commonly recommend supplements under the age of 18.
Okay.
As you say, over 18, that's when you start looking into supplements.
So creatine, anything else?
Yeah, so the next one, the big one is caffeine. So caffeine is great before training sessions. Obviously in the morning, probably not at night time because it might affect your sleep. But caffeine, we have to remember, isn't fuel. Like carbs are our fuel, but caffeine does help to reduce that perception of fatigue, making exercise just feel easier. Great supplement to include. Sources of caffeine can either come from, your coffee or your pre-workout. There's others, but that's the most common. If you do want to be a little bit more specific with the dose of caffeine, because you want to take around 1 to 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilo, that's when I would recommend having more of like a pre-workout, because you can understand the dose and adjust it accordingly with a pre-workout. But on the other hand, coffee, the caffeine content does vary between coffee beans. So sometimes it can be hard to know the dose. But I mean, everyday athlete, just like pick what you feel like. Yeah, those are the two most common
ones. Back on the protein, we spoke about how important it was to get a certain amount of protein in. Do you have any top snacks or food that could be helpful?
Definitely. And like the amount of protein you're looking for in a snack to start with, it depends on how much you're aiming for, but a good protein snack to keep you feeling full and to help recovery is kind of 10 grams or more of protein. And then ideally, you want to choose snacks that are high quality protein sources. So these ones contain all the essential amino acids. So they come from like your dairy foods, your lean meats, your soy-based products, and like your whey protein isolate, so your protein powder. But some examples, so you can do things like, cheese and crackers. You could do tuna on rice cakes or saladas. You could do a protein smoothie, up and goes, Rokeby Farm smoothies. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with those at the moment.
I'll have to have a look at those ones.
Oh, it's so good. It's like 30 grams of protein in that smoothie.
It's just you buy the smoothie from the shop?
Yeah. You can just get it from like Coles or Woolies, fuel stations. Very convenient. What others? Protein shakes, yogurt and fruit. It's a common one.
I saw on your page you have a few different recipes. What's your favorite meal protein snack that you make?
As a snack?
Yeah, do you make it? I saw you have some protein balls and things like that. Do you have different things that you make that's your favorite go-to?
Yeah, I do make bliss balls occasionally. I've been a little bit slack lately. But my go-to is probably the Rokeby, and that requires absolutely no effort.
All right, cool. I'll stick to that one
Which
then.
is good, because I think in this day and age, like, people are looking for quick and easy snacks and meals. Like, I'm very fortunate in that I work from home and can make like a protein smoothie for afternoon tea, but a lot of people don't have that, that access. So
Cool. 2 weeks ago, you managed to do the 50-kilometer run, which is very impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What do people get wrong around training for marathons and ultra running?
I think the biggest thing people get wrong is not adjusting their energy intake, and in particular their carbohydrate intake, on their heavy training days or on their like long run days. A lot of people underfuel, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, on those days, which can really impact their performance and their training sessions, but also like their recovery and just their day-to-day energy levels. So yeah, really important to increase your carbohydrate intake throughout the whole day on those long training sessions. That's probably the biggest thing. And the other thing is people not fueling during their long sessions, like throughout their long runs.
Mm-hmm. What's a procedure for correct fueling through a run?
Yeah, so if you're training for, I usually say 75 minutes or more, I say to include some intra-training carbs. So because we know that like your glycogen levels deplete are around 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's good to top it up throughout your session. You want to aim for around 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. Yeah, and that can come from your energy gels, it can come from sports drinks, energy chews, lollies, just kind of playing around with what works for you. But yeah, it's really important to get your intra-training carbs right, because obviously when you're like exercising, your heart rate's high, your digestive system is not turned on, so you have to choose really easy digestible carbs that are going to take like no effort to digest.
What are some of those examples? Just like the gels and that, are they the best practice?
Yeah. Yep. I like the pure energy gels. Mm-hmm. They're my go-to at the moment. And then there's like the SIS gels, Hummer. Yeah.
It's fine, what works for you.
Yeah.
You spoke about a little bit there of underfueling. Do you find that it's a pretty common occurrence for athletes?
Yes.
Underfueling, yep. Yes. What are some signs that people are underfueling?
Yeah, so big signs of underfueling are like obvious one, just feeling really tired all the time and having like constant fatigue, not being able to push through your whole session with like the intensity that you can. Other big things is, feeling like irritable or moody during the day. If you're a female, having a loss of period or irregular periods is a really, really big red flag. Other things, poor sleep, and also getting sick a lot, and also injuries. Those are some really big flags that you need to get on top of your nutrition. And like you might be feeling, sometimes fatigue and everything like that for a little bit, but you might not think too much of it. But we know long-term consequences of underfueling is really bad, like especially mostly related to your bone mineral density. So yeah, kind of want to get on top of it now if you have any of those symptoms. And if you do feel like, you're trying to change your nutrition, but, you're still experiencing those symptoms, then I would strongly recommend working with a dietitian, a sports dietitian, because like I said, you don't want it to be an ongoing thing. It's going to really impact not only your performance, but just your overall health.
Okay. What are some basic steps that you'd recommend to try to take that step between be fueling appropriately?
So like we touched on, just fueling every single training session beforehand, and having those carbs if you're doing long sessions. Like I mentioned before, eating regular balanced meals throughout the day. So when I say balanced meals, like we started with, having, your protein, your carbs, your fats, your colour in every single meal. And yes, and having, regular snacks throughout the day as well. And also just like monitoring how you're feeling. Like if you're feeling a bit hungrier that day, have another snack. If you're feeling a bit low in energy, like have something else. Like constantly like monitor how you're feeling and sort of take a step back and be like, okay, like what's going on? What should I try? And like I said, sometimes it can be hard to know, and that's where working with someone can really help, because they can really tailor the strategies to your specific symptoms.
Mm-hmm. You spoke before about journaling and things like that. How do you tell your clients to track all their calories and their macros and things like that? Do you think that's important?
I don't actually encourage it too much. Mm-hmm. Every client is different, and tracking your macros is like, it's a tool in the toolbox, I always say. Okay. Like we can use it, we might use it for a short period of time just to maybe like, one, make sure we're eating enough, and it might help with accountability for some clients. But honestly, the way I teach clients is more so how to portion up their meals and what their plate, how to create a nice fueling plate, because I think at the end of the day, we eat food, not numbers. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important to learn, what does a fueling plate look like?
Oh, that we eat food, not numbers. Nice. Mm-hmm. So obviously you like to challenge yourself a fair bit. You've done the Ultras, done the High Rocks Pro. That was also a great effort. Why do you think it's important to do hard things?
It's funny because I've just come out of the 50K and I'm so not feeling like doing hard things. I'm like a Pilates and walking girl now.
Fair enough.
No, I know everyone's different, but I definitely, personally, I love the challenge. And, even just completing that 50K ultra marathon, like to me, that's just like, it's still insane that I did that. And like in my mind, I'm like, if I can do that, I can do anything, like anything that I'm scared of, whether it's, public speaking or just putting myself out there on social media, whatever it is. Like, I'm like, if I can do that, I can literally do anything in life.
I like that thought. I saw something the other day and it was sort of your hard things are just relevant to what you've experienced in the past. So like that, I remember when I did my first 5K run and it was the biggest thing ever. And then I was building up to my 10K run. I did my first 10K run and now most of my runs are generally 10K is sort of the minimum. And I did a 30K run the other day and now I just want to do a marathon. And you just keep building and stacking on those things that you used to think were hard and now easy. Another one you spoke about, social media content. I can still remember the first post I ever put out and just like checking my phone every 2 seconds, like how many likes have I got? Like, and just so scared to put it out there. And now it's just second nature. I do a post every day and I actually don't even look at my likes anymore. Like I'll put it away and then in a week's time I'll analyze it and see what went well and what didn't. But it's just such a non-thing anymore. Do you feel the same when you started running? Or do you remember doing your first few Ks and like it was the hardest thing ever?
Oh, definitely. Like I grew up playing, like my sports were soccer and touch footy. Mm-hmm. They were like my main sports, kind of state level and all that kind of stuff. But then when I moved to the Gold Coast from Tassie, I didn't have time to do team sports, didn't have time to commit with uni. And that's when I got into running. And I'm so like, as a child, so not a long distance runner. Mm-hmm. Like give me a short, sharp, like 100-meter sprint, I'm good. But yeah, when I moved here, I, wanted to do something. So I joined a run club and then, kind of just build up, like you said, like did a 5K and then did a 10K and was like, oh my God, like I did 10 kilometers. Like it's crazy. And then, like now I'm here and it's just,
I know that you said you don't want to do any more hard things after your 50-kilometer run, but do you have any crazy goals that you'd like? Oh man, I'd like to do an Ironman or something like that. Do you have any wild goals that you'd love to achieve?
Yeah. I was before the 50K when I was feeling super duper motivated. I was writing out my list for 2025, which give me a couple of weeks and I'm ready to go again. But I am going to be doing the Fittest in the City, the Turf Games in Feb. I think I'll do High Rocks Brisbane. I think I'll do the open solo, not the pro again. But yeah, I'll do that. And then I have signed up for the GC full marathon in July. And then I wouldn't mind doing another 50K ultra.
This 50 limit, not doing 100, not 75s.
Oh, look. I don't think next year, but maybe eventually, I think, yeah.
You spoke then, you're writing your list for next year. How important is goal setting and setting ambitious goals?
So important. Like with my clients, we always have a big overarching goal, whether it's, fueling for a particular event or weight loss, whatever it is. But it's so important to set those smaller, achievable goals week to week, because if we get stuck in this big goal, it's so hard to see it because it's so far away. But then, setting little goals, whether they're daily goals, weekly goals, so important because, every time we achieve a goal, we get a little hit of like that dopamine and like that feel good, like, oh my God, I did it. And then you want to do it again and again. So yeah, really important. And also just from building sustainable habits, like that point of view, like, you don't want to do a hardcore, for example, weight loss program and hate the process. Like that's what I've had clients come to me before. They're like, everything I've done is just so unsustainable. I'm like, cool. We need to like enjoy the journey because, yes, you've got this goal. Yes, we'll achieve it. But, if we're creating sustainable habits over time, then you'll get sustainable results.
You spoke then about if it's too hard, you just don't want to do it. Or you spoke about habits, and I was reading Atomic Habits the other day, and James Clear talks about the Goldilocks zone, and it's if it's too easy, then you achieve it and it's nothing. But then if it's too hard, you never want to do it again. So about finding that sort of balance in the middle. And I think that's so important with goal setting. I like how you said the easy wins. Like you sort of do want to get those few easy ones out of the way. You feel good, boosting the confidence. Spoke out the running. Like when you run a 5K for the first time, whatever it's going to be, you're like, oh yeah, how exciting. And then you build your way up gradually. Do you have a process? I know you sort of spoke about breaking it down. Like what is your goal setting process looking at? Is it just short, medium, long-term goals? Or do you then break it down? This is the steps to get to that goal. Like what does that sort of look like?
Yeah. And I don't think there's like a particular like set process because, everyone's kind of different in terms of how they achieve their goals. But I definitely try to get my clients to set SMART goals. So that like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-framed goals, just to kind of get them to do that each week just to stay on track and yeah.
So we're talking about sleep, we're talking about goal setting, we're talking about dieting, so very holistic approach to health. Do you have any other focuses that you have that are important for that all-round health? I
think like, we didn't mention it, but like the social aspect as well, like in terms of especially like training and, staying just generally like motivated and stuff. I think it's so nice to be part of a community, whether that's like, for example, my coaching, my online nutrition coaching, like I've got all my one-on-one clients, but then we're also in a community forum. So, people are sharing their goals and potential like struggles and stuff. So, it's really nice to have that support all around you. And then, with your training, if it's, joining a run club or a gym, that you've got like-minded people around you. I think that's really important as well.
Every week I have a guest on and we always end up talking about environment and the power of environment. So it's interesting that once again we sort of talk about it. How have you found, you moved from Tasmania to the Gold Coast, how was it finding a new tribe of people who are like you? Like, did you know people on the coast? And then how did you sort of create that environment that was best for you?
Well, I moved here about 6 years ago, so definitely had a bit of a journey along the way. Obviously when I moved here I had like all my uni friends, but then you finish uni and then that's, I feel like, is when you start to really make your tribe of those people. And I think in the last like couple years I've definitely like found my type of people that you feel really uplifted by their presence and, you're both so supportive and, so yeah, I think how I met those people was through things like, your run clubs and then, social outings, just putting yourself out there. I think that's the beauty with like the Gold Coast. We're pretty lucky in that there's so many different groups and things you can go to, and a lot of people as well from the Gold Coast like aren't from the Gold Coast. So you find a lot of people are like quite welcoming. Yeah.
I think that's a good thing about the power of social media as well. Obviously, it can get a bad rep with everything, but it's very easy to meet people. Like I just sent you a message on Instagram and we were able to have this conversation. And as you said, a lot of people in Gold Coast are from different places, but it's my Instagram feed anyway is very health focused at the moment. It's like early wins, getting the sunlight, going to gym session. So it's good to have that sort of environment where it helps you to be the best that you can be.
Definitely.
I want to go back to the dieting and a little bit. We sort of spoke about it before, but this could be a dumb question or a very simple question, but what are just the best benefits of having a good diet?
Yeah. Good question. It's so broad, hey. But like I was talking about this with a client the other day, and she, like her journey before starting with me, she was really stuck in that, like she was trying to lose weight and she was, eating barely anything in the afternoon and then would have these massive sugar cravings and then overeat. And then, that cycle just continued every single day. And like, she just wasn't feeling good. Her energy was low. Her mood was like pretty low as well. Her sleep was impacted. Like, nutrition affects just like everything. Like I don't think we realize. And then, since working with her for literally a couple of weeks, I just saw her yesterday and she was like, Holly, like I have never felt this good in my life. Like my everyday diet, she's like, or my everyday, life is just feels so good. Like my energy is just stable. Like I'm thinking a lot clearer. I'm not having these like massive cravings in the afternoon. I'm actually able to like control myself and just say no to something if someone's offering me something if I don't feel like it,
What sort of strategy you put in place for that? For you said she said no. Was it just like this is her plan, so she's sticking to her plan, or do you have anything else to help her with that willpower, I guess?
Yeah, honestly, because I'm very big on balance and sustainability and having that 80-20 balance. Like all my clients, I never say you can't have this. Like there's no good or bad foods. It's just context. But it's important to be able to, come back in tune with your body and think, okay, if someone's offering me, I don't know, let's say a piece of cake, like if I feel like it, that's absolutely fine. Go for it. But when you eat it, like enjoy it. Eat it mindfully. Don't attach any guilt or shame or emotions to it. Just enjoy it for what it is. And if you do that, like you'll feel a lot more satisfied from that food and not have the urge to overeat on it. Because a lot of people with that type of thing is that they feel, guilty or whatever it is and feel like they shouldn't be eating it and then they can't stop. So it's kind of about, eating good, nutritious foods that 80% of the time, and then, allowing yourself to enjoy those type of fun foods, I like to call them, in like moderation.
Do you assign anything else other than just diet? Do you to say get amount of steps or anything, like any exercise, or just pure diet?
Yeah, we talk about everything. So like quite holistic, with like sleep and, gut health and training and stuff. Obviously like the training aspect isn't my exact scope, but definitely, movement is really important. So often, we might have a step goal of hitting like your 10,000 steps, just to help, staying active, because that's going to help with kind of everything as well.
Let's flip it. You briefly spoke about the long-term benefits, but what are some of the key, I guess, negatives of not having a good diet?
Yeah, I guess what we spoke about with the underfueling aspects. So, having low energy, not being able to concentrate at work or school, risking like nutrient deficiencies. I see a lot of low iron, especially in women. Just feeling moody, irritable, like those are pretty big things that, poor nutrition can play a part of. And then obviously like long-term poor nutrition habits can lead to, you know, chronic disease, like, you know, your diabetes and your heart disease and things like that. Yeah.
You briefly touched on youth there. I'd love to get some advice. I often see students walking around school for breakfast and having Red Bull and a packet of chips, and these are the athletes as well. These are the kids that we're sort of training up to be the next generation, and they just eating chips and Red Bulls for breakfast. What are some pieces of advice I can take when I go into school next year and I say, hey guys, we're going to focus on these nutrition tips? Is there any top 3 that you could give me that are super valuable for that age group?
Yeah, I think the biggest things, I've worked a lot with your teen athletes. The biggest thing is for them to be more organised and, you know, coming into school well fueled. Like if they're coming to school and they've got no access, they haven't had breakfast and they've, you know, only got like the canteen or whatever, then they're probably not going to choose good like choices. But I think the biggest thing for them is to, okay, before you come to school, I want you to like have a proper breakfast at home. Or if you've got training in the morning, you need to be taking your breakfast from home so you can have it after training. So, you know, whether that's getting them to make a really simple breakfast like overnight oats that they can take to school, or, you know, they might bring a really quick and easy thing like an up and go and a yogurt and a piece of fruit or something. Like need a bit more substance than some chips and a Red Bull.
Yeah. What about for the kids who maybe don't have access to a lot of food at home? Like if I was to go to the school and say we have X amount of money to spend on a certain amount of foods to help the students, what are some easy, I guess, cheapish options that we could sort of do to help the students to fuel properly?
I guess it depends what like you have access to. I'm assuming like just like basics, fridge.
Yeah.
Kitchenette.
Yeah. Like we do a cereal morning. We give them some Nutrient and Wheat Bix or something like that. Like would that be suffice, or maybe some fruit as well? What's sort of a best practice?
Yeah. I think cereal is a really good option because it's so easy and convenient. And choosing more of like your high fiber cereals would be the go-to, just to keep them energized for a bit longer. And having milk and then definitely having like some fruit on there would be good. I think that's kind of the basics, or even like granola and yogurt would be a really great option as well.
Thank you for your time. I just want to have a few more questions. So I want people to leave with some actionable steps, and I sort of want to break into sort of 2 categories. So the first one would be someone who's just starting on their fitness journey. So they're just looking to improve their diet. We have touched on it through the podcast, but I just want to get some succinct 3 steps that people can take to get 1% better.
Okay. Number 1, don't skip meals. Eat breakfast. No, honestly though, it will set you up for the day, and especially if you train in the morning, make sure you're having a nice fueling breakfast. And leading on to that, eating regular balanced meals all throughout the day. Like you don't want to be skipping meals because then you're missing a whole opportunity to help meet your nutrition requirements. So number 1, regular balanced meals, particularly breakfast. Second thing is, if you're starting out on your fitness journey, carbohydrates beforehand. So try a variety of things. If you are new to pre-training nutrition, my biggest advice is start small. Like I don't expect you to sit down, have a whole, 2 crumpets, banana, start small. Some clients I get to even start with half a banana, and that's okay. And then gradually build up as you build your gut tolerance up. And then thirdly, prioritizing sleep. Sleep is a really big one. So,
perfect. Okay, I'm doing all those things right. I'm doing all my basic 1%ers right. What are the top 3 tips to get me to become a high performer, to get me across the line at my High Rocks Pro event?
Oh, you're doing pro?
I'm not, but for someone that is, I'm not personally.
Yeah. Honestly, you just need to nail the basics. Yeah, like when we talk about sports nutrition, I kind of used a cupcake analogy. Like the base of your cupcake is the nutrition foundations, so meeting all your macro requirements. Then the icing on the cupcake is all your fueling strategies. So what you're fueling beforehand, during, and after that's really key. And then on top, the sprinkles represents your supplements. So that's your 1 to 2%ers. So that's your creatine and your caffeine, mainly.
Cool. You spoke about gut health just then. We haven't really spoken about it too much. I feel like for me anyway, my knowledge is coming to a lot more. I'm seeing it a lot more. What are people getting wrong around gut health, and how can we improve it?
It really depends on like the symptoms. Gut health is very like individual, and you kind of really need like a tailored approach. But I think the key thing with gut health is, number one, making sure you're having a high fiber intake. That's really important for good gut health. So, fiber comes from basically all your plant foods. So your fruits, your veggies, whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, all that. Trying to prioritize that. Another big one is slowing down your eating. So
my mum would love to hear that one. I'm the fast. Every time I eat, she comments on how fast I eat. So I'll take that one on board.
Yeah, I find especially bloating, like a really big cause of bloating is just eating too quickly. Because the thing is, like, when you're physically eating your food, like chewing it, it's sending signals to your gut to prepare for digestion. So if we're eating really quickly, then our gut kind of doesn't have time to prepare for that.
Okay.
So even just like slowing down your eating will make a massive difference if you're someone that experiences bloating. So 20 chews per mouthful, at least.
Okay.
Sounds like a lot. Slow down, be mindful.
Next time I eat, I'm just going to sit in there counting my chews.
Yeah.
What are some symptoms then of gut health that people might not recognize that they do have maybe a problem there?
Yeah, poor gut health symptoms can include, your bloating, inconsistent bowels, so whether you experience like more constipation or loose stools, even, what are some other things, like having pain and cramping. It really does vary.
Cool. Before you go, this is not a podcast, it's a mission. I want to help 10,000 people. So one thing I'm going to take away from today is I'm going to do my 1% better, and I'm not going to skip my breakfast. What is one thing that you've spoken about today that you could action better and you're going to take away and you're going to try to do better in your life today?
What I'm going to try to do
what
better?
Are you going to, the things you've spoken about, you're like, is there an area that you speak about it pretty well and you do it, but you don't do it as well, or you just dialed you do all the things you say?
I try to.
Yeah.
Well, recently, I guess on like a personal note, I've just been diagnosed as celiac.
Okay.
So celiac disease, I was experiencing a lot of gut issues, and then I went down the route of having all these tests and endoscopy and stuff, and I found out I was celiac. Which means that I can't eat any gluten. That's the only treatment that they have for celiac. So that's my, like the last couple of weeks I've had to adjust my diet, and I can tell you I feel so much better.
That's good.
Yeah. But in terms of like the 1%ers that I am not great at doing, you know what? It's going to be like taking creatine.
Okay.
I harp on about it that you have to take it really consistently, but I sometimes don't take it, and that's definitely something I can be better at.
I was through that stage as well. I take creatine every day. For me, it's just, I have to have it in my protein shake now. So it's like, all right, Jim. Otherwise, it's just, you just sort of just forget it, and you're like, oh, I got to take it. I heard, is it better to take it with carbs? Is that right? Or is that just myth?
Yeah, no, carbohydrates can help with the absorption of creatine, but yeah, it's not absolutely necessary. Like the most important is just to take it every day. So whether that's the easiest thing to do with a protein shake, if you're going to definitely take it, then I would just do that, but carbs can help.
Before we go, what is your superpower?
My superpower?
Yeah, your superpower. What are you really good at? What's one of your best strengths?
I have no idea.
Helping people, do you think? I feel like
that type of superpower, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, what do you think is your strength? Like, what is one of your strengths that you value in yourself that, it doesn't have to be big superpowers, just people, everyday strength that you have that you think is valuable to other people or valuable to yourself?
Yeah, I think I work really well with clients and helping them make a plan that's really tailored to their lifestyle. I find, naturally, I think dietitians or anyone in that health professions, we're quite empathetic. So I think that's a really big strength of mine, especially in the work that I do, working with clients one-on-one really closely, because nutrition, although it's really simple, sometimes it can become, there's a lot to it. So it's finding what's going to be best for someone to achieve their results. And all of my clients achieve their results. So I'm really confident in that.
How good is that? So your clients and your program, your coaching, give yourself a plug if people want to research you.
Yeah, sure. So most of my business is on Instagram. So you can follow me at performance_dietitian. Everything's on there. So I work with clients, like I said, one-on-one through 12-week programs. Next year, I am launching a membership offering. So stay tuned for that. Super exciting. Can't give too much details, but follow along. And if you ever have any questions or even just are interested in working with me and want to know more, feel free to book a call with me, a free call, just on my Instagram, on my bio link. I'd be more than happy to chat.
Perfect. Before we go, is there anything that you want to share that I didn't ask the right questions to unlock that the audience might find valuable?
No, I think we covered a lot. I guess good luck to anyone that's doing high rocks next week. Make sure you're well fueled. Stick to familiar foods.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.